Hi, it's Wes Stearns. Welcome back to Mo Wilson Properties Property Management Moment. This week I have Suzanne Starling, and she's kind enough to sit with me. And today we wanted to talk about determining a market price for a property and the tenant screening process. So I'll start. Thank you, Suzanne. I wanted to know, first of all, in sales, to market a property, we do different things. How do you market a rental property?
Great question, Wes. First, photos matter. Photos are key. They speak 1,000 words. Oftentimes we have tenants or potential tenants coming from overseas, and those photos are all that they can look at to determine whether or not they want to rent the property. So we take good photos. And the second thing we do is we try to maximize the exposure by marketing the property on the MLS, which is Bright, the multiple listing service, and that goes out to Zillow and many other sites which tenants look for in order to rent the property.
Good. So my philosophy with the sales is like fishing. The more hooks you have in the water, the better chance you have to get a bite.
Exactly.
So you do the same thing with rental.
Yep.
What about signs and lock boxes?
Okay, we do put a Sentry lockbox and we do put a sign on the property. That's physical advertising as well as the online advertising. We also do something called Showtime, which the agent can, once they get inside, they can actually, they could schedule an appointment before they go in, and then once they go inside, they can let us know what they thought of the property. And that feedback is huge because it tells us whether or not the owner should do certain things or how the property is being shown.
Oh, good. I wanted to know, let's say I have a tenant in there. How soon can you get access to the property? Because I don't want a vacant property. So it's great. You've got on Zillow and Trulia and all these websites, but my tenant's not leaving for 2 months or 3 months down the road. I don't want to wait for them to leave. So what are the rules as far as getting into that property while I still have the rental income?
Per the lease, the tenant is supposed to show the property, allow the property to be shown. But during this day and age, some tenants may feel more comfortable allowing the property to be shown virtually or through FaceTime. But the rule is 60 days prior to the expiration date of the lease, we're allowed to put a Sentry lockbox and a sign on the property and list the property for rent. Now, if the homeowner is selling the property, then of course it's 90 days to the expiration date of the lease. And we of course let the tenants know. We really want to maintain that communication with the tenants, and we put their number in the listing as the contact person.
How does it work? Let's say that the landlord wants to sell and the tenant wants to stay. How is that taken care of? What prevails? In Virginia, if the tenant wants to stay, are they allowed to stay?
They can stay through the expiration date of their lease. Okay. Once the lease is over, then the contract is over. So either party can give notice to vacate up to 60 days prior to the expiration date of the lease. Great question, though.
Hey, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have a property manager, and you don't provide the right notice, that could be a big problem if you want to sell and trying to get the tenant out of there. What about like military? Let's say I have a military landlord. Is there a military clause with orders? How does that work?
Yes, the Virginia Real Estate Tenant Landlord Act actually has the provision, the military clause provision, embedded in that lease that allows military members and their family members actually to break a lease without any kind of ramifications to them. But they have to follow the rules. And, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that they have to receive what's called PCS orders, or permanent change of station orders, and they have to be leaving or moving 30 miles outside of where they're currently stationed.
And that's active duty only?
No, active duty only, yes, sir. Okay. But it can actually be their family members, and it can apply to retirement too. So if they are retiring and this is their last change of station, it can apply to them.
I know we're going to get a lot of comments and questions from this because there's so many technicalities with military and Department of Homeland Security and what are the rules and access. It's a lot to learn, so please send your questions. How do you, Suzanne, how do you determine the market rent? Because sometimes I'm going in some properties and I'll see a townhouse that's $1,000, and in the same subdivision I'll see the one that's like $1,400. how do you determine the right market price for your landlord?
And I'm glad you brought that up because pricing is really important. Oftentimes, if a property is sitting on the market for a long period of time, it's because it's not priced right. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of experience at Mo Wilson Properties. I think we've been doing this for over 30 years. So we have a lot of experience at setting the price. First of all, we look at the condition of the property. And then we pull market comparables for the last 6 months. That's basically looking at all the rentals in that particular neighborhood at that particular size, number of bedrooms, and so forth, and determine what is the going rent. We'll make a suggestion to the owner what we think it should rent for, and hopefully that owner takes our advice. We want to maximize the owner's profit. We want to maximize the amount of rent they can get, but we also want to rent it quickly and make sure that we're getting, the property is not sitting on the market for a long period of time.
Yeah, vacant properties, that's not a good investment.
Right.
Well, on the quick note, let's say I got an application, I just want to put someone in there. I've met some people that you think they're nice, but the credit story tells a different story,
Yeah.
What do you do for screening when you get a tenant application?
Well, picking the right kind of tenant can actually save you money in the long run, because if you pick a tenant who may cause an eviction or not pay their rent, it can actually cause a homeowner a lot of money. So we want to make sure we screen that tenant and get the right kind of tenant for an owner. And so that process is key. The first thing we do is we pull a credit. We verify their employment and make sure they're making the income that they say they make. And then also we want to look and make sure that income, that they can afford the property. So we're basically looking, the rule of thumb is 3 times the rent and income per month is what we're looking for, or more. The last thing we do is a rental verification. We'll call their last landlord and we're going to make sure that they have a good rental history. We'll call the owner, we'll go through all that we found, and we'll advise the owner.
What do you do? I mean, sometimes family situations, maybe one person's impacted unfairly with credit. What are your options with someone that may have been a victim or had a medical situation that hurt their credit? What options do you have for someone that deserves a property but doesn't have the credit? What can you do?
Life happens, and sometimes, somebody is going to have issues on their credit due to medical bills that they couldn't pay or something, and we understand that. I mean, we are cognizant that not everybody has perfect credit. So a lot of times, they have to have a good explanation, or they have to have paid a lot of their bills up to date and not be too far in debt. But we will consider some people with less than great credit with a double security deposit, and sometimes with a cosigner, which can be very helpful.
Can the tenant prepay extra months of rent?
They can. It is a selling point for some tenants. They would like to say we can prepay the rent. We would prefer to see a double security deposit and a cosigner than the prepaid rent, because at some point that tenant is going to have to pay the rent, and if they're not used to paying it, then it can be quite a financial surprise. So
it's a lot of good information.
Yes.
My last question is, when do you, so you told me about getting feedback from some of the agents, but when do you decide to make repairs to a property for a landlord, and how do you know that it's going to equate to a higher rental return?
That's a fabulous question for making sure that we're marketing the property correctly. And part of that is looking at the condition beforehand. If I see something that may be an issue, then I'll bring it up to the owner and I'll advise them on that. Of course, it's always up to the homeowner. We also do a thorough marketing report for the owner. We send that every few months, or every few weeks, which includes feedback from the agent, letting us know what their client thought of the property. That can be hugely helpful to an owner to maybe make a repair or renovate a bathroom that may be holding people back from renting a property. Now, if we're managing a property and we have a tenant in there, we do move in and move out inspections, which we will know what kind of maintenance is needed, and we will advise the owner as we're managing it.
I told you that was the last question, but I have one more. Maintenance. Do you have a maintenance team, or what kind of organization do you have set up?
We do. We have a very thorough maintenance team. There's 3 of us in the property management department plus We have extras. So the tenant can call us, speak to Pam Bodie, who is our assistant property manager who handles all the maintenance, or they can put a maintenance request online through Appfolio, through the tenant portal.
But you have a bunch of different vendors with.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we use lots of different vendors. And if the owner has a preferred vendor, of course, we'll use the owner's preferred vendor.
Your prices are probably a lot better than mine because of the amount of business that you're giving them. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Please send us questions. Subscribe if you have any more questions, and I promise you we're going to have some more interesting stories to talk about landlords and tenants. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.